Guys, this is my response to Preston Jacobs' Thousand World Book Club, the first story, The Hero. And this is basically going to encompass my overall theory, or philosophical or meta-level theory for George R. R. Martin's work. But I think this will end up being a decent example, and then we'll let the rest of the book club play out and see if people agree with me or not, or whether I change my theory. Anyways, let's start off with the concept of the Fermi paradox, which comes out of astronomy, and it's basically the paradox that there's millions and billions of stars throughout the galaxy and throughout the universe, and statistically there should be loads of intelligent life throughout the universe, but yet we haven't found any. And the second part of this is the great filter, which sort of explains the Fermi paradox by saying all intelligent civilizations, at some point, they acquire enough knowledge and enough technology that they have the ability to destroy themselves. And eventually they do destroy themselves, and therefore we don't find intelligent life throughout the universe. And usually when people first hear about this concept, at least my observation is they typically say, what? That's insane. Why would some species be so intelligent that they could acquire this ability, but yet so stupid that they would destroy themselves with it? That doesn't make any sense. And I think this story may serve as an example of that. So let's break it down really quick. Our protagonist basically begins in combat. He's fighting. We are not really given a lot of reasons why he's fighting. He doesn't really ask. Apparently he doesn't really care. He just goes out and kills these people. In fact, he doesn't just kill them. He kills the shit out of them. He doesn't give them a fighting chance at all. And then he goes and he talks with his boss and goes and takes a starship ride. And then his boss kills him, or agents working for the boss or whatever. And that's essentially the story if you want to boil it down into a nutshell. So considering this fictional society, where we have a society that's very clearly trying to kill another society, and then it's also very willing to kill members of its own society if they decide not to like them, then why is it such a stretch that this society could eventually decide to kill itself, right? We have this justification, and Preston touched on this justification of us versus them. So long as there's a them, we can always find a reason to justify whatever we want to do to them because they're not part of us, right? So let's take this a step further just in case you don't believe me. Consider your experience of this story as a reader, right? Rejoin the protagonist in the middle of some peril. And it's a pretty typical writing style to use because it engages the reader. We see his protagonist and his life is in jeopardy, or something about him is in jeopardy, and it engages us with the story. It's very gripping, so we start following him, we start reading, right? And then we see him overcome this peril, and then he enters this new scene, and soon it becomes clear to us that he's still in some peril, although it's more subtle, and so then we're still gripped by this and we still keep reading. And then we go to this final scene where our protagonist is killed. And reading through the comments that have already been posted on Preston's video, it seems like a lot of people respond negatively to this, and personally that's my reaction as well. You see this happening, you think, wow, that's not fair. This guy knew his rights, and apparently he'd served, his society in his military capacity, and he didn't deserve this, right? Well, it's a bit ironic, considering that when we opened up the story, he was killing the shit out of some people, and we were given virtually no justification for that either. It's just that those people that he was killing were part of the them. And I'm saying them because as the reader, we're self-identifying with the protagonist, right? He's our guy, and we want him to win, so we'll justify pretty much whatever he's doing because, he's the one that we're following in the story, right? So it's completely fair to us that he goes and kills these guys because they're them. But when our guy gets killed, that's not fair, right? And that's an outrage, and we feel very negatively about that, right? Well, isn't this the exact response that George R. R. Martin's trying to exemplify in this story? That intelligent people, or at least in this case humans, we select an us versus them. And if there's a them that we don't identify with, we're willing to justify whatever we do to them, right? If this is your response as a reader, then you need to think about that, a little seriously, and consider that in the context of George R. R. Martin's other stories. And I'll hit one more here just as another example. And this is a protagonist that we're all much more familiar with, Tyrion Lannister. If you, obviously there's no scientific way to justify this, but basically any of the, fan polls that are taken, Tyrion Lannister generally ranks to be the fan favorite in the story. He's the favorite protagonist that everybody likes more than any of the others. And when you look at the things that Tyrion Lannister does, Tyrion Lannister is a bad dude. He is not a good dude. He is very bad. If you knew him in real life, he would probably be one of the worst people that you knew. And yet, he is a fan favorite. And we follow his story. He entertains us, and we justify his actions for that. And we come up with these constructs of Tyrion is good, Cersei is bad. And if Tyrion can beat Cersei, we're okay with that. If Cersei beats Tyrion, that's bad, right? And, it's kind of ironic. Again, going back to my concept here, it's kind of ironic because this is, again, the same justification that causes these societies to unravel and start working towards destroying themselves. And actually, I think that in one of Preston's reviews of, he does the reviews of the most recent season episode responses. And one of his most recent ones, he makes this analogy of it's like watching a baseball game and he wants both teams to lose. Because, as the story progresses, we realize more and more that all the different parties involved, they're all pretty bad. None of them really deserve to win, per se. And so the viewers are becoming more and more comfortable with the fact that if the White Walkers win, or whoever the great evil is, if they win and destroy the society, that's probably okay because the society is pretty corrupt. Okay? This is how society destroys itself. And I guess what I'm really interested to see throughout the course of this book club and throughout the course of finishing out the Song of Ice and Fire is whether, I guess, who pulls the trigger, right? Is the trigger pulled by people working with greed, their own self-interest, or is it people who are filled with hate, as in they're so disgusted by the society, they've kind of despised the society so much that they basically want to see it gone. They think it's going to be for the better if the whole society just goes, right? And to me, that's the ice or fire, right? The ice being the greed and the fire being the hate. So anyways, thanks for watching, and I'm looking forward to the rest of this book club. Cheers, guys.